Welcome to episode 29 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast, Operation Annihilate.
In this week's episode, Kirk and the Enterprise head for the colony of Deneva, home to over 1 million Federation citizens. A wave of communal madness has been tracked, charting a path to the same destination, and the mission becomes more challenging when the colonists immediately display challenging behaviours. With so many lives on the line, will Kirk allow McCoy to cut ethical corners in developing a solution? And if he does, can he live with the consequences?
Quite the contrary, Captain. I had a very strong reaction. My first sight was the face of Dr. McCoy bending over me.
Good evening, Ian.
Good evening, Gerry. What was your first sight the last time you woke?
Fortunately, it wasn't the sight of you bending over or anything like that.
No, not this time.
Yeah, I won't forget it.
Oh,
What? I thought it was a nightmare I was in.
a dream.
A bad one.
Oh,
How are you?
I'm not too bad, Gerry. Yourself?
I'm good.
Good. Did you enjoy this? The final episode of season 1.
Yeah, we've eventually arrived here. It's taken its time because of the old COVID.
Yes.
We're a few weeks behind, a few months behind.
We are.
I did enjoy it. I thought that it ended in a weaker note, which we can mention. But overall, I thought it was fine. Maybe not as strong as what I'd have expected for a season finale, if I'm being honest.
Okay. We can maybe go at the end of this episode over the whole season.
Yeah. Could we?
Pick out some favourites.
You've not warned me about that. I could have taken some notes.
I thought it would be obvious.
No, it's not. We might cut this.
Right. The only thing that held this episode back for me really was the look of the aliens. I had a bit of trouble with that.
Wasn't great, was it?
No.
Maybe the budget by this point in the season had been spent.
Maybe. Or maybe they just didn't have the imagination to visualise the concept in a different way. Certainly, I thought the remastered edition might do something with it, but no.
There was one particular shot which I assume was a remastered that I took a note on. It was very nice.
What was that?
Can't remember, I'll get to it.
Okay, if it's on your notes, we'll find
It
out.
is. Also, I should say, I kept wanting to, and I wish it was called Operation Annihilation as opposed to Annihilate.
I didn't like the double dash. It's messed up all my file names.
Yeah, it's going to be hard, isn't it? I've got to do that when okay.
Still some good moral questions, though.
There was, yeah.
We'll get to those in due course.
If I don't forget.
In the gap between seasons, feel free to get in touch with us on social media, where we're at Trek Podcast on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And you'll always find a post for each episode up at www.StarTrekPodcast.com.
Did you mention YouTube?
Yeah, we're also on YouTube.
And IMDb?
And you can review us on IMDb if you don't mind. That'd be good, thanks. I need to update that, actually. It's a few episodes behind.
Finger out, please.
Every time I do it, you give it 8 emails per episode, though.
Do you? Okay. Is that us?
It is.
Let's crack on. A wee bridgy start.
Your favourite?
Yep. Where Uhura tells a pensive-looking Kirk that she has been unable to communicate with anyone on the planet Deneva. Is it Deneva or Deneva? Deneva. And so he tells her to try a private transmitter.
He does look quite concerned, doesn't he?
Yes.
Spock reports that there's been a wave of mass insanity passing through the sector. I had sweeping through the sector, but it's not sweeping very quickly. I think it had been 200 years between outbreaks, and then the most recent one a couple of years earlier. Sulu reports a one-man Denevan ship heading directly for the sun.
Also, Spock showed on the screen this path, but I must admit, it was a bit like when people show you, the Orion's belt and all that stuff in the charts. I can't see it. That's not really a straight line. I was trying to follow it, but no. I'll take your word for it, Spock.
You just trust him. It's Spock. Yeah. Kirk wants the Enterprise to intercept this vessel, but they're too far away, despite coming much too close to the sun themselves for Scotty's liking.
Yeah, they also try to communicate with it, but it gets no direct response. However, just prior to destroying itself in the fiery ball, they hear the lone pilot claim that he has done it and is finally free.
Yeah, then he burns up.
He does, as the Enterprise pulls away with sweat rolling down the crew's face. That was quite nice.
It was. Kirk queries why this ship has flown into the sun, and Dr. McCoy has a suggestion.
What was that?
That this mass insanity has reached Deneva already.
Seems fair enough.
Well, it's a bit of an acceleration, isn't it?
Yeah. Ahura admits that she is still having trouble with the transmitter call to the planet.
Kirk's quite testy with her here.
Yes, and for understandable reasons, I would say.
As McCoy informs us.
Yeah, we get the big reveal.
Kirk's brother and his brother's family live on Deneva.
Oh.
Dun dun dun.
Now, this could have been used before, and used in a more effective way, I think. We have discussed in the past that there have been situations where Kirk seems to have taken things personally, and there was no good personal reason. In this case, there obviously is, but they don't really use the emotional bonds here.
No, for me, the entire inclusion of his family was unnecessary in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't, like you say, they didn't use it effectively.
We get the credits, and then the obligatory Captain's Log 3287.2. What do we find out?
That Deneva is one of the most beautiful planets in the galaxy.
Don't know why that makes any difference, but there you go.
It's maybe explaining why people live there, despite the fact that mass insanity is clearly on the way.
Yeah, but we find out that's not why. It was a...
No, it's on a mining route.
Yeah, it was a cargo hub, I suppose.
Scotty and Spock provide some exposition as we return to the bridge anyway. Scotty's been here before.
Has he?
Yes, he used to work on the engineering works out here, and there were supplies going to and from a nearby asteroid belt. That's why the colony was built on Deneva.
Yes, but apparently there's been no contact with the Federation for over a year. That seems a bit lax. Like, there's been nothing they've not thought until now. Wait a second.
Well, they're just sort of working away. The mining operation won't be a Federation, it'll be a private mining operation, a bit like Devil in the Dark.
Yeah, but they'll supply, the Federation will be effectively customers.
Possibly, but maybe they're not.
Okay.
And that'd be why they haven't heard from them.
In which case, then, what's it got to do with them?
Well, it's their citizens. It's humans.
Sure.
So they take an interest, and also the Enterprise is passing.
Okay. Ahura finally manages to make contact with this private transmitter, and Kirk hears a disturbing plea for urgent help from a woman who claims that they will know.
Yes, and Kirk recognises her voice immediately.
As
his sister-in-law. I think her name's Oralan.
Yes.
Uhura loses the signal and gets a verbal volley from Kirk when she can't re-establish it.
Yeah, he doesn't treat her very well, but again, under the circumstances, if he has family in imminent jeopardy, it's understandable.
Yeah, he blurts out a little bit more exposition here when he tells McCoy that, yes, you were right a short while ago, before the credits, when you said about my brother, and also, he's a research biologist, and that was his wife on the phone just now.
Down in the transporter room, phasers are set for stun as Kirk prepares to beam down to the capital city with McCoy and Scotty, as well as 2 red shirts.
Yeah, there's little activity, Spock reports, on the surface, despite the fact that the number of people present is as they would expect.
Yeah, something's obviously a bit off here. Something's up.
Yes, they're taking a yeoman along to record the details, and Kirk asks her to take note of everything.
Another one. Please just pick one and have her being a recurring regular character.
I like to think that they just keep on filing sexual harassment claims and moving on.
Probably not that far from the truth. Down in Deneva, they materialise in this city, which is oddly empty despite having a population of around 100,000 on a planet with a population of a million, is it?
Well, the colony is a population of 1 million. I don't know how much of the planet it covers. This is one of those things that I think Star Trek struggles with a little bit. You're meant to take that these problems are planet-wide, but we only see a very, literally one city's worth of action.
Of course, but that's down to obviously the budget. So this is a question I have. The colony is 1 million, and there's 100,000 in the city, in the capital city. But are we meant to assume or led to believe that there are natives, there are alien species on this planet as well? Or is it...
No, I think it's otherwise unpopulated. Well, we don't know. I mean, it could be otherwise populated. So it might be that this is the main human centre, and then there's other species have their own cities elsewhere, or it might just be that it's otherwise unpopulated.
Okay.
But given that what gets said later in the episode, I tend to think it's otherwise unpopulated.
Sure. Kirk recognises where his brother's lab is, and so they head over there for some answers. However, as they approach, 4 men appear. Yes,
they are verbally quite keen for the landing party to remove themselves.
Yeah, it's an odd approach. They seem aggressive, but they, on the other hand, don't. They don't want to harm them, but it's weird.
Yes. They're quickly stunned by phasers anyway.
Yeah, nonetheless, yeah, we're not sure about you. You're getting a bit of a stunning. And when they have been incapacitated, Spock points out that indeed they appear to be trying to protect them, although Kirk does note that they try to brain them with their clubs.
That's true, and McCoy notes that despite being unconscious, their autonomic activity is much higher than you would anticipate.
But before they can consider things further, they hear a woman scream and run inside the building from where it is coming.
She is quite the screamer.
Yeah, I was watching this taking notes in a room with the kids, and they did look up a few times and had to turn it down.
Yeah, I was watching it on my own and I had to turn it down. It was just
quite disturbing.
Piercing.
It wouldn't have been out of place in a horror movie.
Yes. It's obviously how she auditioned.
Yeah.
Just stand over there and scream, please.
So we see her and she's yelling that they are here as she falls to her knees in hysterics beside the bodies of what looks like a man and a child. But the child, have you noted in this first shot, is quite clearly a doll.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the man is William Shatner.
Really?
With a moustache.
Ah, okay.
And we come to learn it's Sam.
His brother.
Who's dead. Peter, though, the young boy, is not a doll. He's alive.
At the close-up, it's obviously a young actor.
It's a real Pinocchio moment. McCoy prepares to head back to the Enterprise, and Kirk refuses to accept condolences for Spock, instead asking for theories. Now, I've got a bit of a retcon. You've not watched Star Trek Discovery here, but in Star Trek Discovery, Spock's sister, which is set maybe 5 years prior to this, or 10 years prior, Spock's sister has just disappeared off into the future and he'll never see her again. So when he says he understands how Kirk feels, that might be a connection that we can retcon in. But Kirk's not having any of it. He wants to get on with the job. Doesn't matter that my brother's dead.
Yeah, I think he's trying to act stoically and
professionally,
keep himself together. Yeah. We should say, I don't know if I mentioned there, that obviously the Orlin, she's passed out.
She has now. She was, before she passed out, though, trying to cover a ventilator on the wall, and Spock notes that something obviously managed to get in, but Kirk can't understand because there was nothing on sensors. Yeah,
again, there've been plenty of examples and experiences with things that can't be picked up by human technology.
That's it, they should maybe anticipate it more. McCoy, at this point, asks if Kirk will return to the Enterprise with him so he can be there when Orlan wakes up. So Kirk asks Spock to take control of the landing party for now and find him some answers.
Up in sickbay, McCoy is unable to give the exact cause of the conditions or the deaths at present, but says that both the survivors are in extreme pain.
He makes a reference to getting plates back from the lab, which I believe is a reference to an old school X-ray technique that was used in the 60s, which obviously is already outdated. So
came back. These things always come back.
We pretend it's something more futuristic. It's not X-ray, it's some other future plates, titanium or something. Orlan is resistant to the tranquilizer she's being given, but as you say, suffering from extreme pain. McCoy says to Kirk, however, that she's able to speak.
Yeah, so he tries to get some information from her. He tells her that her husband is dead, but her son is alive. And through a fever, she tries to explain what happened.
They came 8 months ago. Things. Horrible things. Visitors brought them in their vessel from a planet Igra B.
What kind of thing?
Not the ship's crew's fault. The things made them bring their ship here.
Orlin, it's important that you tell us what kind of things.
Not their fault.
When she answers questions, any questions, it's as if she's fighting to get the answers out. As though something is exerting pain to stop her.
They use it to control us. They're spreading, Jim. They need us to be their arms and legs. They're forcing us to build ships for them. Don't let them go any further.
That's plenty.
Yes. She is one of the biggest screamers I've ever come across.
Say no more. It's, there's no call for that. I would calm down, dear.
It's like she's having a baby or something.
I mean, how bad can it be?
Exactly. Well, McCoy says, look at this chart, it goes up really high.
Yeah.
Not yet, he says this about someone later, doesn't he?
So at the end there, we heard her effectively dying.
Yes, and Kirk leaves asking McCoy to keep the boy alive.
Yeah, I think there's a sense of dread there. He knows that it's looking bad for him, I suppose.
Grim.
McCoy says, again, I think he's quite honest, says he will do what he can, but it feels like, as I said, that they both know what the likely outcome will be.
Yeah. Kirk returns to the surface where he asks Spock for an update.
Yes, he says that they have seen no other people and that the stunned ones, the ones that they stunned, were gone when he returned.
Yes, they haven't seen any alien life either, but Scotty says there has been a strange buzzing sound. Wasps, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it could be. Or a Nan Summers shop.
Who knows? Kirk says set their phasers to kill. Tells them they're looking for a creature that they know is prepared to kill them.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they assume that the buzzing sound is the source of the problem.
There's no animal life or insect life of any kind that would buzz on this planet.
It could be mechanical, it could be anything.
It could be. Well, they said a strange buzzing, so maybe it's something unique.
Probably. So inside, they approach the source of this buzzing.
Some kind of weird stairwell there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like something out of a school.
They hear some squeaking, which they soon discover is coming from a number of jellyfish type things.
Yeah, sort of gelatinous creatures, yeah.
That are stuck to the walls and the ceilings.
They look ridiculous.
They do, and when one starts flying at them, they use their phasers to knock some off, stun some and knock some down to the ground.
Yeah. The yeoman who's there agrees with me. She says they don't even look real.
Yeah.
Which is the one line that for me saves the whole situation.
The special effects guy must have been raging.
Yeah, the scriptwriter's taking a shot at him here. It's like,
Yeah.
I wrote brain cell aliens, you've given me flying jellyfish. The creature doesn't register on Spock's tricorder, but he asks to take it with him.
I think he says that it is life, but not as they know it. And they are able to withstand this phaser attack. So it's not killed them.
It's not been killed. One of them's been a bit knocked out and the other's left.
Yeah.
But Kirk's not comfortable with Spock's suggestion and says, no, they can't take it with them right now. They need to leave.
Yeah, it might be a trap. But as they go to leave, one jellyfish flies at Spock and attaches itself to his back, causing him to collapse in agony before Kirk manages to rip it off with his bare hands, which I thought was very dangerous.
Chancy.
Yeah, risky.
There's a famous outtake of this scene where someone throws the jellyfish at Spock and hits him on the butt.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
And he starts laughing.
Okay. But it appears that Spock is not all right, even when the thing's been removed.
No, he's still in some significant pain, it would appear.
Captain's log supplemental.
Have you not noticed, as we've gone through this season, they've used fewer and fewer captain's logs, it feels?
It does feel like that, yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't like to count, but
No, I'm not
that's
going to.
the sense that I get.
Yeah.
Kirk says that no matter what these creatures are, they've taken over everyone on Deneva, which he's established from a small sample size.
Yeah. Just to go back to your point there, maybe it's because that during the earlier episodes they weren't quite as confident or the scripts weren't quite as efficient, and they felt they had to tie things up a little bit more with narration.
It could be, yeah. Or it could be that these scripts have so much in them that they don't have time to recap.
Yeah. Anyway, we're at sickbay.
Yeah, McCoy is examining the marks left by the creature on Spock's back.
Yes, with the assistance of Nurse Chapel.
She's back. This is
Chappelle.
the first time we've seen her since her own episode, What Our Little Girl's Made Of.
Was that the one where she became infatuated with
No, it's one where her fiancé was a robot.
a sex robot?
Yeah, the sex robot episode.
Aye, Andrea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We heard Chapel's voice in the following episode, and then she's not been in the show at all since then.
She was a computer, wasn't she?
Well, she does the computer's voice, so I'm not counting that.
Right.
So we have heard the actress, but the character hasn't been involved since that time.
Okay.
McCoy tells Chapel that Spock is resisting this anaesthetic. They're in the middle of surgery, we should say. And obviously she's responsible for anaesthetising Spock, but he is fighting the anaesthetic.
Or something inside him is doing that. His signs are not what is expected, and when McCoy tells Chapel that he intends closing Spock back up without further treatment. She looks quite shocked.
Yeah, she thought McCoy would try to save him rather than just remove a sample.
Yeah, he doesn't take kindly to being questioned and verbally lashes out.
I think it's a reprimand, essentially, isn't it? He says, if you're not prepared to do the job, get someone in here who will.
And I thought at this point that he may have been infected in some way and it was changing his personality.
No, that's just the way he is.
Being a bit of a dick.
Well, he's working. He needs our help. He can't have time to discuss everything.
On the bridge, seemingly more calm, McCoy states to Kirk that he is not confident he can do anything for Spock or the boy, as he shows him a jar containing tissues that he removed from Spock and Orlen's bodies.
How is he?
To be very frank, Jim, I don't know that I can do anything for Spock or your nephew. Pieces of some form of living tissue. I removed one from Spock's spinal cord, the other from your sister-in-law's body. They're both the same. Now, the boy's far too weak to touch. Besides, the removal of the tissue wouldn't stop the pain anyhow, as far as I can tell.
Did you operate on Spock in time?
No. I just removed these for examination. His body's full of these tentacles, entwining and growing all about his nervous system.
My nephew?
The same. Evidently, when the creature attacks, it leaves a stinger much like a bee or a wasp, leaving one of these in the victim's body. It takes over the victim very rapidly. And the entwining is far, far too involved for conventional surgery to remove.
Recommendations?
I'm sorry, Jim. The lab, the science departments, we're all stumped.
It's not the first time that McCoy's had no ideas
No?
in this episode. And it's not the last. As we'll come to see, he's not
Useless.
very efficient in this particular hour.
In fairness to him, he's a human medical doctor. He's not meant to be experienced in dealing with alien creatures.
Well, he is a space doctor. Anyhow, Spock, once Kirk and McCoy are gone, Spock sits up in his bed and, despite Nurse Chapel's protests, leaves sickbay. And she alerts the bridge.
Yeah, and so Kirk puts out an all-decks alert with orders to locate and restrain. But there is no need, as he barges onto the bridge and tries to take over the ship, before eventually being held down and subdued by a shot from McCoy.
But he's been shouting about taking the ship down and how he has to do it. Kirk tells McCoy and the security guys to use security restraints when they get Spock back down to sickbay.
And that's where we go. He is now unconscious as McCoy notes to Kirk that the K3 indicator monitors pain.
The K9 indicator monitors pain in dog years.
Yeah, very good. And he turns it on for him to see how much their friend has been going through.
A lot.
Very much. Well, I mean, you don't know how that scale.
Yeah, it might be.
Only up to 5.
Yeah, you stub your toe, it goes right up to the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Up to 11.
So, anyhow, Spock wakes and advises that he has conquered the pain and no longer needs to be restrained.
I wouldn't be believing that at all.
Well, the pain register just said that he was still in pain.
Yeah. You're not conquered that at all.
No. He says it's a mental thing and as a Vulcan he has control of it, but Kirk reminds him he's not all Vulcan.
Yeah, quite like that. Yeah, he said I'll be returning to duty now, apologising for his earlier mishap, his missteps. Sorry about that.
Yeah, taking down the ship and everything.
Yeah, that was just, wasn't myself. Fine now.
Give me the keys back.
Won't be a problem. So we're good.
Spock admits that his human side has been an inconvenience in the pain-subduing process, but McCoy refuses to confirm Spock's self-diagnosis.
He does, although, again, Spock tries to persuade them. He says that he has his own will and he wants to help. But Kirk is rightly cautious and says that he will review the situation later if he can maintain control. Maybe they just try to pacify him, but until he's been either dead or been cured, you can't take that risk.
You wouldn't have thought so. Kirk orders Bones to find a way to help Spock and Peter, and then Bones goes a little bit all lives matter here, saying, but what about the other million people whose lives you aren't considering?
Yeah, and it's obvious it's a a burden that weighs heavily on Kirk.
We've seen episodes that deal directly with this previously. This isn't going to be one of them.
No, he's had heart-to-heart. I can't remember who it was with. Was it with Spock or maybe McCoy?
It was with McCoy, yeah.
Yeah, and even there was an older doctor at one point, I think,
End of
at the
the
drink,
Cage.
and he sort of...
That wasn't Kirk, though, that
no.
was Pike.
But he gets things off his chest, and it does feel this responsibility, this weight, and it's clearly gets to him at times.
After Kirk and McCoy leave again, Spock continues his meditation on the pain and then bursts free of his restraints.
Remind me, do Vulcans have extra super strength?
Well, it depends how you define extra super strength. Vulcans are stronger than humans.
Are they? Much stronger than humans.
Yes, do you not remember? You used it as the opening clip when we did This Side of Paradise about Mr. Spock when he's aroused, being very dangerous.
Yeah, but there's different types of danger.
No, he's just very powerful.
Okay, because, yeah, you shouldn't be able to snap through restraints.
Well, they should have developed better restraints knowing that they had the potential for stronger people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyhow, Spock makes his way to the transporter room where he tries to commandeer the transporter to return to the planet, but to his misfortune, it's not only the hapless transporter chief who's there.
No, Scotty's there and is surprised to see him enter and disobeys his order to beam him down.
Well, after a scuffle in which Scotty is knocked to the ground and Spock disables the transporter chief.
Yeah, but Scotty gets the upper hand eventually.
He does. He's got his phaser pulled and he's not willing to take Spock's orders, as you say. He calls for Kirk to attend.
Yeah, he arrives with McCoy and some security.
He asks Spock what the F he's doing, and Spock says he has discontinued the pain.
Yeah, he tries to convince them of his intentions. He tells them that the creature needs to be caught and analysed, and as he has already been infected, he should be allowed to go down.
There's no evidence that he can't be harmed further.
No, he can be killed.
He could be killed like Sam Kirk was, or it could be that, that creature's only in his back for a second. It could be if one gets attached to him longer, then it can do double the damage, 10 times the damage. Yeah. Maybe he's only receiving a tenth of the pain.
But in fairness, perhaps Kirk's willing to... he's down on the planet, so if he dies and goes down there, then it may be worth it if they can get some sort of resolution. McCoy refutes the notion, but is overruled by Kirk, who allows him to go with a phaser and...
Tells him his logic is inescapable.
I'm sure he would love that.
I think that's a convenient line from Kirk's point of view. I think he just is desperate at this stage.
Yeah. And he's going to be constantly monitored anyway.
Outside the transporter room, McCoy tries to question Kirk's decision, but is reminded by Kirk in no uncertain terms that he's well aware Spock is the only man for this mission.
Yeah, they both agree that he is.
Down on the surface, Spock is attacked by a man who is very swiftly subdued.
Yeah, it's with a large comedy key.
I thought it was some kind of bolt thing, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Spock then has a moment where he struggles with his self-control before regaining it and returning to that sort of stairwell area where they shot the creature previously.
Yeah, this time he's more successful. He phasers it and puts it in a toolbox.
With giant plastic tongs.
Yeah.
They were quite cool. I'd buy a pair of those.
Would you?
Well, if I had any tong needs.
Poisonous fish thing?
Any kind of alien extraction or picking up things that are not touchable.
Reminds me of the old joke about the person that worked in a baker shop and doesn't matter.
Okay.
It ends up him going to the toilet and...
Well, let's just move on. It's a family podcast.
Yeah. If anyone wants to know, get in touch on social media.
Phone Gerry and his personal number. In McCoy's lab, which I don't think we've seen before, but which is quite nifty, Spock is pleased, I think, or as close as Spock gets to pleased, to show Kirk and McCoy what he has found. Yes,
they have the thing in a jar, and he explains...
They have what?
And he explains what he has discovered.
Interesting, gentlemen. A one-cell creature resembling more than anything else a huge individual brain cell.
Yes, that would answer a lot of questions, wouldn't it?
Do you understand what I'm suggesting, Captain?
I think so. This may be one cell in a larger organism, an incredibly huge organism, in fact.
And although it is not physically connected to the other cells, it is nevertheless part of the whole creature, guided by the whole, drawing its strength from the whole, which probably accounts for its unusual resistance to our phaser weapons.
Existing so differently, from any living matter or energy as we know it, that it may have come here, planet by planet, from an entirely different galaxy.
From a place where our physical laws do not apply. We may therefore find it difficult to destroy, Captain.
But not impossible, Mr. Spock. The Denovan that flew into the sun cried out that he was free, that he had won. That's the angle to work on, gentlemen. I want an analysis of all this from medical and life science departments within the hour.
Yes, sir.
They've kind of buried the lead there. Kirk's just made a massive discovery about the other Denovan being released by the creature. He's made that connection, and it's kind of underplayed, I think.
Do you think?
I think it's not built up like the music and whatever else. It's not built up as this is the big reveal.
Sure.
We've seen it killed. We've seen these creatures killed. We know it must be possible. It's just kind of said as part of their instructions.
Yeah, but they don't know how to kill it, and that's it.
No, but they know it's possible.
Sure. Well, of course.
I think that the mistake that the Denovans have made is they've fed these creatures after midnight.
There was a touch of the Mogwais at the beginning there. But they love killing it. They're always talking about destroying things. They're not trying to find a peaceful resolution. Maybe these creatures like the big pizza monster just wanted to be
Horta,
friends.
Yeah. They didn't try putting salt on it. I think that would have killed it.
Definitely. With Kirk gone, there is a nice short exchange between McCoy and Spock as he points his tricorder at him. Did you notice that?
Yes. And Spock's like, stop scanning me.
Yeah, I'm fine. Okay, just checking.
Later on, Chapel is working with McCoy and Kirk returns.
Yeah, I think he admits that he is at a loss. He's tried everything, including
again at a loss.
I know what. I've tried everything, including radiation and intense heat, in an attempt to kill this alien species.
Yes, and there's no point trying at a higher level because they would kill the hosts.
Yeah. But Kirk, he demands something. He wants something that's going to kill it, but not the host.
Yeah, we get the argument or the discussion from earlier in the episode flipped around. So this time, McCoy accuses Kirk of making this personal, and it's Kirk who brings up the 1 million people on the surface.
Yes.
That McCoy pointed out to him previously. Although he does say he'll kill them all if he has to. You can see Spock reaching for his phaser rifle already.
Nope, not you. He doesn't want to accept that there isn't a solution here.
No, he's not willing to give up on his nephew, but more so Spock.
I think he says they've got the best equipment in the galaxy and 14 labs on board. 14 of them.
Yeah, how many labs do you need?
Exactly. 14, that seems a bit of overkill, yeah.
One of them's got Sulu's plants in it.
True.
Anyhow, we get a captain's log where Kirk says he's faced with the most difficult decision of his life. He might have to kill 1 million people to end the alien threat. Including Spock and Peter.
Mm-hmm. Peter
doesn't get mentioned much.
No. But see, I thought that also was a weakness in this episode. You bring the family on board. Well, firstly, the brother, he's dead straight away. The sister-in-law she just screams a few times.
Yeah. You could have had the boy waking up and going, please, Uncle Jim, please don't let me die.
Yes. There should have been some more interaction between the family members.
Yeah. I'm the last of our line.
But you're annoying. Never really liked you. Shut it.
You've got 2 brothers that didn't live on the planet. In the briefing room, McCoy once again has no ideas for Kirk, who must by now be ready to replace him with a new doctor.
Yeah. He's working his ticket, as they say.
Spock is in favour of destroying the colony, as you would imagine.
But McCoy interrupts, saying that they can't kill over 1 million people. Are you mad?
Yeah, he's angry that he thinks Spock's turning it into a numbers game. Mm-hmm. You know, we kill 1 million to save
Now, if we go back to, I think you disagreed with me, but we go back to the conscience of the king.
Yes.
He had to make a similar decision. If I sacrifice, and it was less than this, I think. Far less.
I don't remember. I thought it was 5 million people that died.
I'm not sure. But anyway, it's still the same moral...
50,000 or something?
Yeah, the same moral conundrum, isn't it? If you have to sacrifice X amount to save more, then you have to do it.
Well, it's not the same. He was a madman, and he killed folk when help was on its way.
He didn't know help was on its way.
He didn't check.
Anyway.
Kirk insists on the third way.
What was that?
He doesn't have it yet. He wants them to find it.
Yeah, you're right enough.
They've failed now on 4 occasions, but he's still adamant that this is going to happen.
So we're in his quarters, where McCoy and Spock report to him with unsatisfactory news.
Again.
Yep. They've been all over their options, but they have no third way.
Spock wants to now beam down with Peter so that they can be killed. But Kirk fortunately puts his brain to this for 5 minutes and solves the problem.
Yeah, I'm not overly happy with this. Spock's meant to be the logical, the extremely super intelligent person, and it's just like, and then McCoy, he's the medical person.
But sometimes it's like this, though. You get stuck in this rut, and it takes a new pair of eyes on a problem to look at it from a different angle. So the fact is, they know there's a solution, they just can't figure out how to get to it.
Sure.
So anyway, Kirk points out that they haven't considered one factor of the sun's presence that could have damaged the aliens.
Yeah, what attribute is it they've missed?
Well, light, which is quite a general term.
But it's also one of the most obvious things you say. Describe the sun. Yeah, warm, bright. That's the first two things I think you would go
It's
for.
warm and it's radiation-y. It has mass.
No, it's really bright and really warm. Anyway, yeah, so
Yellow.
what did they get to?
They could light up Denver using satellites to simulate the sun being closer, and McCoy can he's not very optimistic about this, but he can test this out on the specimen.
It sounds very unlikely. Linking up satellites to then beam it down and kill every one of them. Oh, I wouldn't be thinking my chances would be high with regards to that.
No.
Maybe if you focus it in the lab, yeah. But just pointing at a planet?
Well, apparently you can do it.
Yeah.
Down in the lab again, Spock has done the maths. Chapel has set up the experiment, and the three men don goggles as McCoy pushes the button.
Yeah, strapless goggles, I noted.
They're quite cool. Do you remember strapless sunglasses? They were a thing for a while.
But why would you not have a band round the back or something to put over your ears?
They don't need it. It's probably magnetic.
It wasn't. They had to hold it on with their hand.
Alright, well, maybe it's just efficient.
It's not efficient, it's inefficient.
So people can't hang themselves with the cord.
That's probably it. Anyway, they put these masks on, these glasses, and hit the creature with the light. And after a few seconds, they check to find out that it was a success.
Success.
However, Kirk is still pensive and has reservations, the reasons for which quickly become apparent.
What's the matter, Jim? We can do it.
It worked in a lab, with the creature exposed to everything we can give it. But what about the people who are infected?
Well, I don't know. Maybe trial.
Maybe. There's no time for maybes, Bones. We need to know now.
But I'd have to put him.
Yes, we'd have to put someone who's infected under that light.
Do you have any idea of the risk?
We have to duplicate the conditions on the planet. And Spock.
Captain, you'll need a host for the next step in the test to determine whether the creature can be driven from the body. I am the logical choice.
Do you know what 1 million candlelight per square inch can do to your optic nerves?
There's no other way, Bones. We have to duplicate the brilliance that existed at the moment the Denovan declared himself free.
All right. I'll rig up a protective pair of goggles.
There'll be none on the planet's surface, Doctor.
I agree completely.
Unfortunately, you're both right. It's the only thing we can do. All right, Mr. Spock.
It's not the only thing they could do.
No, they certainly don't have to duplicate. It's not as if they have two options with limited time, is it?
They could have tried it with the goggles on, and if it failed, tried it with the goggles off.
Or just tried it on the planet and see what happened.
It's not... There's this sort of sense of a deadline approaching, but there's not really a deadline approaching.
Well, no, I think there is, because we've seen that Sam died and Orlin died, so there's perhaps a time limit that you can, a certain amount of time before you die.
And there's 80, there's not a hard time limit, they're not up against a countdown.
No, and we know for a fact that they came 8 months ago, so these people, you assume, have been infected for 8 months.
Plus, the aliens want to keep the other people alive to build their ships.
Yeah.
I presume Sam was killed because he was fighting them, because he was a research biologist. He was also trying to find out what the problem.
Right.
That'd be my guess. He's maybe the guy.
Yeah, because that's one of the things. It's not really clear what they are. So what they're trying to do, they're building ships for what purpose?
To invade the next planet.
But what's the end? Is it just a virus?
It just spreads planet to planet to planet.
Why do they keep losing? If they've got a ship that takes them to one planet,
yeah,
why can't they use that same ship to go to the next?
because they hijacked somebody else's ship to come to that planet.
Yeah.
I don't know. Presumably they've lost the facility. I don't know.
Not really clear.
No. It doesn't really get explained.
Oh.
Anyhow, Spock is now zapped with the light, and lo and behold, it is a success.
Well, you say that. There is one small downside.
Well, he's completely blind, but
Yeah,
he considers that an equitable trade.
and things get more uncomfortable.
Seconds later.
Yeah. Chapel enters with results from the first test.
Yeah, which shows that it only needed to be UV light that was applied to kill the creature.
McCoy had just whacked him with the entire spectrum.
Literally, had waited for 30 seconds, he would have had this information.
But I don't blame McCoy for this at all, and I think Kirk gets a bit angry with him.
I think Kirk's angry at himself as well.
Well, he should be, because he was really forcing them to come up with a solution, and there's no way they could have, made sure everything was entirely safe and quality controlled.
And if they were doing a test that was going to give them this result, why does McCoy not say, give us 10 minutes, we'll get these results, and then we'll be able to do a test or do this next test?
Slipshot.
Anyhow, I think McCoy's angry at himself as well for going through with it. Kirk's angry at himself, and neither of them are really angry at Spock, but only because he's gone blind.
Yeah, they feel sorry for him now.
Yeah.
The poor blind guy.
Kirk tells McCoy to take care of Spock and heads to the bridge,
Where Sulu completes the sending of the 210 ultraviolet satellites out around Deneva, and Kirk gives the order to energise them.
on the surface.
This was the remastered shot
Okay.
of the satellites.
Right,
It was quite
yes,
impressive.
that was good. On the surface, we see the aliens start to sizzle and melt.
Yeah, they smoke away to nothing. Job done.
Uhura then reports that Deneva is starting to come into contact. The plan has worked. The aliens are dying.
And Kirk communicates with McCoy in sickbay to relay to Spock that it was a success. And hearing the despondency in his voice, McCoy's voice, that is, yeah, he tells him that it wasn't his fault, but he gets no response.
No, he repeats himself a couple of times.
He's hung up. This is quite interesting. So, yeah, I think Kirk realises that he put pressure on McCoy and it isn't his fault.
That would have been a good place to end the episode.
And the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we can get to how I think the season should have ended.
Anyhow, moments later, or sometime later, Spock and McCoy come up onto the bridge, and it's apparent that Spock is no longer blind.
Yeah, Kirk is dictating a message of success for Starfleet Command when he enters, and it's a very sort of casual. Oh yeah, I'm fine. What was the reason?
Turns out he's got a third eyelid that protected his optic nerve. The blindness was only temporary, and he's fine now. That's a little bit of a... Was that a Deus?
Yeah,
Ex Machina?
I think so. And this is where I have the biggest issue, I think, with the episode. What I would have expected, and perhaps what they would have done if it had been made today, that would have been the cliffhanger, where he would have been blind, and he's not dead, so he can continue, and you would start next season's.
Yeah.
You would start the next season with either in the first episode resolving it, or again, I think if it was today, it might have drawn out over two or three episodes until he regained his eyesight. Yeah, so I think it was far too casual and too easy. Oh yeah, don't worry about it.
What I would have had McCoy do is harvest Peter's eyes for Spock.
Yes, through the eyes of a child.
Yeah, so Spock's then got human eyes. Sees the world a bit differently. And Peter obviously doesn't know any better because he's just a kid. Just telling him he went blind.
Yeah.
Well, you could have harvested one of Peter's eyes. They could have had an eye each.
Seems fair.
Yeah.
An eye for an eye.
Exactly. Okay. Anyhow, McCoy laments that Spock's brief blindness did not increase his appreciation for beauty when he hears the line that we heard at the top of the show about waking to see McCoy bending over him.
And as they prepare to head to Starbase 10, McCoy whispers to Kirk and asks him not to mention the fact that... Don't think we mentioned it.
We didn't, no.
He referred to Spock as the best first officer in the fleet. So he's giving him a compliment.
Yes, he doesn't want Spock to find out, but unfortunately he overhears.
Yeah, he turns around, and I quite like this. He thanks him firstly for it, and Kirk reminds McCoy that whilst he was thinking of Spock's Vulcan eyes, he forgot about his Vulcan ears and hearing.
Yeah. And they're on to the next adventure.
They are. So overall, I thought it was it was a fine episode. It was perfectly acceptable.
Yep.
The resolution to Spock seemed ill thought out or not thought out, I suppose, a bit lazy. I thought
Careless,
more,
yeah.
careless, and more could have been done with it. I think you could have expanded it. You're giving yourself more content for more episodes.
Well, even if you're not doing it into a further episode, you could have had a longer season finale, or you could have had them go blind earlier in the episode.
I mean, perhaps it was that audiences of the day, perhaps executives, thought that was unacceptable. You know, the good guys had to...
Yeah, well, this is, you had to have a reset.
Yeah. So that
if you missed an episode, you didn't have to wait 3 years to find out what was going on. Everything was just fine at the end.
Sure.
The fact that removes McCoy's need to consider his own actions as well was a bit of a cop-out.
Yeah, but it wasn't really his own action. I mean, partially, I suppose.
The actions of all three of them, I suppose. But yeah, he's the doctor. He makes the final call.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said at the start, I didn't think that the inclusion of Kirk's family enhanced the episode.
No.
That could have been anybody.
Yes, without a doubt. They should have done more with that as well.
And no cliffhanger, like you say. So do you think they've done enough to get a second season?
Yeah, definitely. Although I'm not sure, perhaps you can tell me, at the time, did they know they were getting a second, or did they have to wait?
Yes, it was announced. I don't know if I mentioned it in the trivia, but it was announced about 10 episodes earlier in the credits.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
They would be returning for a second season.
In that case, it's even more disappointing. If you know you're coming back, then they could have done the thing. If they didn't know, then perhaps they wanted to wrap it all up and Spock's fine.
Do you want to look back at the season now or after the trivia?
Let's do it after the trivia.
Okay. Any other thoughts on the episode?
No, like I said, perfectly acceptable. With a couple of tweaks, it could have been a very good season finale.
Originally aired on the 13th of April 1967. It was directed by Herschel Doherty, the first of his 2 Star Trek episodes. He also directed shows like Wagon Train and Dr. Kildare, and he died in 1993 at the age of 82. Stephen Karabatsos, I've heard of him. He was the writer for the episode. He'd been a story editor for the show, and he left on unfriendly terms. You can hear more about him if you go back to the episode for Court Martial. Joan Swift played Orla Ann Kirk in her only Star Trek appearance. She also appeared in shows like The Munsters, Bewitched and Ironside, but she didn't appear in film or on TV after the 70s, and she died in 2016 at the age of 83. Craig Huxley, this is an interesting guy. He played Peter Kirk.
Do you remember Huxley Pig?
I know the name, I've never seen it.
Cartoon, I think.
He was credited as Craig Hundley in this. Obviously I hadn't taken his equity name yet. He made a few further acting appearances, but he's best known for his music and electronic sound work, including, I think, Blaster or Phaser Blast, which is used on multiple Star Trek movies, all the Back to the Future movies, films like Seven. He's also got sounds in Titanic and other movies. He's now 65 years old and still working.
Very interesting, that.
David Armstrong makes an uncredited appearance in this episode as Kartan. Do you remember him?
No.
I think he was one of the guys in The Surface.
Right.
Or was he the... Yeah, no, he might have been. Anyway, this is the second of his 2 original series roles. He had previously appeared in A Taste of Armageddon, and he also appeared in 3 Columbos.
Did he?
Making him our connection of the week. Not for the first time, 2 of his appearances in that show were A Stitch in Crime, opposite Leonard Nimoy, and Fade into Murder, opposite William Shatner.
There we go.
And we didn't mention him in A Taste of Armageddon. I went back and checked just to make sure. He died in 2016 at the age of 91.
Can't complain.
As I mentioned previously, Sam Kirk was played by William Shatner in a dodgy moustache. Not the same dodgy moustache that he wore in his second Columbo appearance, Butterfly and Shades of Grey.
Classic moustache.
The Deneva exteriors were shot at the TRW Space and Defence Park in Redondo Beach, California.
Okay.
And in terms of international titles, the French used La Lumière qui tue, which means the light that kills, and is a massive spoiler. The Germans went with Spock außer Kontrolle, quite literally Spock out of control, which is the opposite of what actually happens in the episode. And our friends in Japan settled on Denabase no Kaiki Sebutsu, or mysterious creatures on the planet Deneva.
Can't argue with that.
Okay, so in terms of season 1, don't need to talk too much, I suppose. Maybe top 3 episodes, top 5 episodes. What would you say? Or just top 1. What was your favourite episode or favourite characters?
Okay, favourite episode I think's fairly straightforward. That was the sitting at the edge of forever.
Yeah, I agree. It just pipped out Devil in the Dark for me, which had been my favourite up to that point.
In terms of characters, I liked Mudd. It was fun. He was good.
Yep.
And of course, I cannot ignore the lovely Andrea.
I thought you were going to say Kur.
Akira was good, but I would prefer to spend time with Andrea.
Did you prefer the Romulans or the Klingons in their episode? They had one episode each.
Klingons.
Klingons are your favourite? That's good. There's been more of those.
Good.
The Romulans are good as well. That episode, Balance of Terror, was one of the strongest ones, certainly in the first part of the season. And it's well remembered.
I like Khan as well. He was good.
Khan was good, and you won't see him again in the series, but he does show up in Star Trek again.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of the first season. I think we're in a good position going into season 2.
I should say, so looking back, not watching the episode before we started this, I've very much enjoyed it. There was a couple of episodes which I thought were weaker than the rest, but overall, it was engaging. The characters, I have grown fond of them. I think I know, that their personalities are becoming more apparent, and you can see the sort of progression. I'm keen to find out where they're going to take the show.
Any of your expectations challenged?
Expectations, no, but there's obviously I found out more about it. I didn't really appreciate the relationship between, for example, McCoy and Spock. I wasn't aware of that, and I've enjoyed that. And I wasn't necessarily expecting the comedy, the comedic interplay between some of the characters, which was there. And
some of the variety as well, and the types of episode that we got.
So overall, very enjoyable. Glad I watched it, and I am looking forward to season 2.
Yeah, we'll kick that off next week, or we'll say next week.
Yeah,
kick that off next week with Amok Time, another Spock showcase.
Good. Look forward to it.
Okay, we'll see folk then.
Cheerio.
Bye bye.